Hello and welcome to the old comedy slab. And the reason I'm talking like this is because that season is upon us again where I can do great impressions of the late great Terry Wogan because I've got a rotten, stinking cold. The Comedy Slab podcast this week is sponsored by Cavonia.
Okay, who was the voiceover for that?
That's all. It's Ainsley Harriott, isn't it?
It is indeed.
That's all I was going to say. That's all I can manage, actually. So thanks for tuning in. See you next time. My little lad, he's nearly 2. And he loves... Ainsley Harriott does the voiceover for a kids program called My World Kitchen, where all kids from all different backgrounds and heritage and all that sort of stuff generally cook like a dish from their own heritage. So,
right,
like the Irish kid did potatoes, and the English kid did chips, and
so we're talking at the exotic end of the spectrum,
and it's basically potato based by the sound of it as well. I haven't got anything off that anyway. But Ainsley Harriott does the voiceover, and my lad loves it. I wonder if he might be a chef. He's absolutely transfixed by the sight of these kids cooking and doing this stuff. It's amazing, really. And
wow.
I have to say, nearly 2 years old, and already he's had me in stitches today. He's already started doing a comedy carry-on style ooh. So I went into the kitchen today.
Ooh,
and he was
one of those.
He was sat in his high chair, and I don't know what I got. I think it was like we have these little malt loaves. He likes these little malt loaf bars that he has. He likes those. So I got him one of those. And I got it out, and he went, ooh.
Oh, we wonder where he got that from.
He started doing that. Anyway, quick introduction. If you're not joined us before, the Comedy Slab podcast, myself, Shane O'Connor, and himself, Adrian Lacey, get together every
You stuttered
week.
On the Adrian there. Was that the contempt in the voice? I can't bring myself to say his name.
We've only done 60 on. I couldn't remember who it was. This is the 63rd
right,
episode. Yeah, who is that bloke at the other end? But we get together every week and we dissect. I think is the most common term that we use. A comedy that one of us has chosen. It was my turn to choose last week. You will hear 3 clips of that said comedy in the program this week. But I chose. For my sins, I chose, and we'll talk about it in a minute, The Mind of Herbert Clunkerdunk.
As you do.
We'll just park that there for a second, shall we? And talk about that a little more in a second. Kind of week have you had? You had a good one?
Yeah, not a bad one at all. But it's backtracking a bit because you mentioned Ainsley Harriott. Here's the thing.
Yeah.
I was in a brasserie. You're going to love this because doing my London lovey bit when I actually lived in southwest London.
Sorry.
And I was in...
Can I just ask, what's the difference between a brasserie and a bistro?
I thought you'd say it between a brasserie and a brassiere.
Oh, no, I know that's what.
There's probably a very funny answer to that, if only I could get there quick enough. One's a front... No. Sorry, I've forgotten what your question was.
What's the difference
all I can see
between
now is
a brasserie and a bistro?
Is this a joke?
No, I genuinely want to know.
All right, I thought you could say what's the difference between a basin and a bison? No, what was it? No, that's wrong, isn't it? A buffalo.
Yeah.
No, it's a
a buffalo and a bison.
You can't wash your hands in a buff. Yeah,
that's it.
We can't even get poor jokes right. We should make it clear, if it's not already, I don't think we need to, that we're not ourselves comedians. We are slabbing. Well, speak for yourself, darling.
I know I'm not, but I'm not so sure about you, mate.
Unintentionally, people laughing at rather than with me. Anyway, so I don't know what is. No, there isn't much difference. I don't think so. 2 lovely words.
You said brasserie with such confidence that I kind of thought that you would know immediately the dictionary definition of a brasserie.
This is where you stereotype all Londoners of a slightly left-leaning persuasion.
Come on, darling, we're all going up the brasserie.
Anyway, so there I was. No, I want you to tell me if you can work out the psychology of this.
Yeah.
I'm sitting, having a coffee. I mean, it could have been a transport caf, frankly, although what happened in the brasserie might not have happened in the average transport caf.
Huh.
I'm sitting there reading with my coffee, and I am clocking someone in my peripheral vision. So very very out of focus, not at all clear, because I'm focusing on the words. But I know someone is coming who is famous. It's the oddest thing. The oddest thing. I was absolutely sure it was someone famous. How do I know that? So I look up, it's Ainsley Harriott. So that's why I'm dusting off the... And I thought, what part of the brain deals with fame while you're reading something and says that... no offence to Ainsley, I was going to say that blob. It could have been anyone was a blob.
Yeah.
A moving person. I cannot see their face. I cannot see, any detail. But it's so clear in my memory that it was purely peripheral memory, and I knew it was someone famous. Just weird.
Had he got his chef's hat on?
There was that, and he did have a camera crew in tow. But apart from those very subtle things...
There must be...
Anyway,
what's the thing that makes your brain remember faces? And then
I don't have that thing, unfortunately.
You said that before. You don't, do you? You can't do that, can you?
Oh.
Which is why we don't bother with the pictures with Skype. I just because there's more chance of remembering my voice. But isn't there a part of the brain that remembers faces? And so, maybe if you get an upgrade on that, if you download the latest, that version has got like SatNav. It's got like a recognition of faces. Do I know this person? No, and then it flowcharts into. They must be famous.
Well, it's an odd one, isn't it? I mean, TV's completely messed with millions of years of evolution, such that we think we know them and we forget it's a... I have never worked with Ainsley. Despite working in TV for years, I never worked with him.
Right.
But I'm quickly going to do a plug for my podcast, then I'll shut up. I've done
Sorry, just because this is about fame, and
Okay, you finish.
I was just going to say, and it's the brain suspends disbelief. I remember going into the Ideal Homes or the Grand Designs, I think it was, the Grand Design show at the NEC, and I walked into the press room there, and sat behind the desk was Kevin McLeod, and I was like, "What, did you do everything? What, are you you've given the press passes away as well?" But he just somebody had gone out the room, but it was just like the weird, and so your brain goes. Like, I know that's his program, Grand Designs, but it's that he does everything kind of thing. So it's weird, isn't it?
Good line, because you're never short of a good line. All I was going to say was, I've my latest podcast. They're not as frequent as the Comedy Slab, tragically, but my solo side project, which we must now call it, because this has turned into the main one, you rotter.
It's only because I bully you into doing one every week, that's why.
There is that, yeah. You'd think with my inner bully I'd manage my solo one, but obviously you're far more bullying than I can manage on myself and far more effective with it. Or is it that it's such fun doing a show with yourself? I mean, yourself, not myself. Anyway, the London podcast it does what it says on the tin. It's anything and all things to do with London. Friend of mine studied in London. Once he'd done his degree as a medic, as a doctor, his specialism was in neurophysiology. He's a neurologist, consultant neurologist, and we talk about psychology. But it's very conversational because I'm not a psychologist. And you've heard of this term, because this will come back to Ainsley. You've heard of the term parallel processing?
No, I haven't. No, what's that?
Well, it's when you. I'll give you an example.
Sorry, can I say that again? It sounded like I was reading it from a script. Hang on a second. No, I haven't. What's that?
That sounded like you were insincere, but hey, we'll let it pass. Just fake it for long enough. When you see someone, your parallel processing instant is taking where, assuming you have sight, and if it's on hearing, substitute hearing for sight. But if you see someone, what you see is going immediately in parallel to at least three different parts of the brain. One is just saying, "Do I know this person?" It's your flowchart.
Yeah.
And then I mean, look, this is rough schematic, like the London Underground map. I don't know the detail.
2 is it Ainsley Harriott?
2 is it, and then another area. No, it's not always Ainsley Harriott. You little tinker. The third one is, what do I feel about this person? And sometimes, I don't know about you, sometimes, and this is, okay, that's the narrow example of a face, but this is going on all the time. You're hearing, it's because, computers ape this. It's much more efficient. Otherwise, you've got to go from your flowchart just bit by bit by bit by bit, and you get more and more delays down the line in a single line. Instead of a single line, it's going whoosh in multiple directions at once, like multi-track tape.
It reminds me of Mel Smith and Griff Rhys-Jones doing their head-to-head, and they're playing a game of 20 questions. Have you remember that one?
I don't remember that particular one, but I like their head-to-head.
And he says, and Griff Rhys-Jones goes, Mel Smith says, you've got 20 questions to guess who it is. And he goes, okay. He says, does it begin with an A? And he says, no. He goes, oh. Does it begin with a B? And he says, no. He says, does it begin with... He said, you can't just ask it all right with the letter it starts with. He said, you're supposed to ask, is it animal, vegetable or mineral? And they go on from there, really. But, yeah, I think that was their head-to-head live.
And he'd run out of questions if it began with Z, of course.
Exactly, yeah. Or then,
right, yeah.
I don't know what questions he'd go to if you have to ask... say it did begin with F, what questions you were asked then? I suppose the flow chart would go, is it Ainsley Harriott? And if it says no, is it Phil Vickery? If it says no,
you're naming
Jamie
who's
Oliver?
Phil Vickery? Should I know Phil Vickery? I obviously should know Phil Vickery.
Do you not know Phil Vickery? He's married.
Well, I don't know that I don't know him.
He's married to Fern Britton. He's the chef on This
I know
Morning.
Fern Britton. Oh, okay. Anyway, londonpodcast.net, one can subscribe from there and hear the latest podcast, which includes the joys of parallel processing, light entertainment on the Comedy Slab and the London Podcast.
Do you know, I know I work with him, but I have to say, just while he's just wandered off to go and have a gin and tonic for a second, it is a blooming good listen. It is worth it. It is if you like your podcasts, he's got a lovely conversational style. And Adrian's not bad either as well. So,
hey!
Right. So the Mind of Herbert Clunkerdunk.
Yeah.
Where on earth do we begin? I'll ask you for a headline in a second, and we'll do a clip in a sec as well. I think I mentioned last week, didn't I, that I found this by having a casual peruse through the iPlayer comedy section just to see what was on and about and all the rest of it. And I came across, I don't know if you saw this as well, but I came across the graphic for it, or the screen grab or whatever it was. And I thought, oh, this is a kids program. They put it in children's by mistake. This surely isn't, or it's comedy and it's children's as well. But that's unusual. They don't usually do that. But I was sufficiently intrigued to go and click on it. So I don't really know anything about this. I don't know anything about the series. I don't know anything about Spencer Jones, the guy who's written it and the guy who's made it. And I came to it as fresh as you have, apart from, I think I did the caveat last week that I'd never seen anything like it in my life, as somebody great in a musical once said. So should we have a clip first, and then I'll ask you for your headline and get your first impressions? Is that cool?
Yes, indeed. If I can only remember what my first impressions were.
Okay.
I did. I had a headline up my sleeve, which I've managed to forget. But anyway, let's listen to clip one. And
the other reason for listening to clip one is so I can have a blooming good cough in the middle of it as well. So the first episode, we listened to two. Well, we watched two episodes rather, because they're only 11 minutes long. They are the archetypal comedy short. And the first episode that we watched was Jingle. Sorry, I just keep seeing in my notes the character named Johnny Wallop, which I just think is fantastic. But this is called Jingle, and it's all about the characters you would expect. Herbert Clunkerdunk, who has got a very vivid imagination, and his imagination kind of interrupts him all the while and comes to life in a magnificent animated way. Including his shoes. His shoes talk to him quite a lot. He's got a line of shoes in the hallway, as most people do. And his shoes have regular conversations with him. And in this particular clip we're going to hear, his Wellington boot reminds him that he's still got some work to do.
And you haven't done that radio jingle yet.
I know. I told Tubby Taylor that I was going to think up a catchy radio jingle for his cab firm in Plumstead. He's a nutter. You know, every area's got that proper dodgy family that everyone's scared of? They moved away because of him. I'm so scared of him, I can't even think of anything good.
Taylor's taxi's gonna take you there.
Total bash.
Oh, I should have done it ages ago. He wants it today.
Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock.
All right. Pick me up, Mummy.
Still in dog poo again.
Oh, have you done the jingle?
Plumstead, Padstow, Preston, pick your destination.
Dead man walking Clunkerdunk.
Pick me up, Mummy, right now.
You are getting so heavy.
Wow. Where does one go?
I've got to say, as well, there's so much going on visually, isn't there? In that, I mean,
I was going to say, yeah.
it's I would say it's almost 10-1 visuals to audio. It's like I was just recounting in my mind all the things that happen visually, what's going on in that clip, and it is bonkers, isn't it? Really,
That's probably a good word for it. I was struggling for the right poetic term, but you've got that. I had. It's not very good. I had a headline along the lines of Engelbert Clunkerdunk Hunky Dory. I was trying to match the manic, nonsense style, it's very hard because I'm not a manic act. But and there's a big but. I don't have a big but well, maybe I do. See, he's started something now, hasn't he? He's bringing out the worst in me. But I came into radio with the excitement of, if I was to talk about a radio parallel, an artiste, who would we be talking about on the radio?
it'd be the late great Kenny Everett.
The very same, who I can do name drops about, but I probably shouldn't. I imagine, I haven't... I've merely skimmed the surface of Spencer Jones' career, but I imagine he would acknowledge a debt to Kenny Everett. And since you're filling in the gaps for me so nicely, if we were to talk about a TV troupe, they've had they're enjoying an anniversary at the moment, big anniversary.
Would you say Monty Python, do you mean?
I was going to say, yeah, absolutely, yeah. 50th anniversary, just as the wonderful Fabs and Abbey Road, I've just drifted off to my favourite album, is enjoying a 50th anniversary. It's big days for people of a certain age. And, okay, so we've done radio, we've done TV. If it was a book, what might his influences be? And there's not one answer to this. I'm going back, I can think of something from the 19th century.
Oh, gosh, I don't know. I mean, I don't know, Jabberwocky? I don't know. It's like it's off the...
That certainly would be in there.
It's surrealist fantasy, isn't it?
Yeah, I was thinking of Lewis Carroll, Alice Through the Looking Glass. It's all there, isn't it? Still... Yeah.
Sorry, I was going to say, would you concede, though, that if you were to draw a parallel with a TV show or a TV comedy... like as it is now, it has a uniqueness, don't you think?
Oh, yeah. I mean, all of those are influences, but the genius of anyone that's doing something new is that they take influences and they move another step on from that. And I think he's successfully done that. And I'd say hats off to it's BBC Three, isn't it? It's been going out on? This is the thing about iPlayer. You don't quite know which channel it's gone on. In a sense, it doesn't matter. But it's an independent production, Tiger Aspect Productions, and Efic, E-F-I-C, did we know that?
That's his company, Efic, yeah.
His personal company.
Yeah, he's the only person listed in that company, yeah. So
I knew we could rely on you to have gone to Company's House.
Yeah, I'd just like to know who's doing what. It's the interesting thing is as well. You saying about TV and platforms and whether it's BBC Three or whatever. The two characters that is it in the second episode that he meets outside the house with the long necks. I can't remember if it's the first or second.
Yes, Cav and Saf.
They're there and they're going, oh, we don't watch television anymore. No, we don't watch television anymore. No, it's all on our computer now. Yes, we only watch Netflix and iPlayer and ITV.
Four on demand, 4AD,
yeah, whatever. And they're doing all the stuff. And then he said, well, actually, it's not a computer. He said, we've had it into a projector screen on the wall. Said, so you've got a telly there. But this is what people do, isn't it? We don't watch telly anymore.
Yes, I mean, a few years ago, I became aware of the phenomenon of young people watching, iPlayer on the computer and not having a telly at all and saying, well, I don't need a licence fee. Obviously, the laws tightened up on that. But, hey, I mean, is it clear? I flipping loved it. what's interesting to me is first time through, this is the reverse of what it's been for the last few shows we've slabbed. First time through, loved it to bits, laughed like a drain.
Yeah.
Second time through this evening, it was... I wasn't laughing in the same way. Obviously, I mean, I was in a different headspace. I mean, for new people to the Slab, we try to listen or watch whatever we're putting on the slab of comedy. We try and imbibe it not once but twice, just so that you get some of the subtleties the second time you might miss the first time. So I was in a different headspace. That's not to say it's not funny, but it was... there wasn't the laughing like a drain the second time. So I've got a query in my head. It's no more than the query. How long-lasting is the effect of Herbert Clunkerdunk? But certainly, I love it. The world is a richer place for it. Hopefully, Spencer Jones is a richer person for it. And it did make me go back to YouTube. We can talk about that a bit later on other things to look at of his.
The curious thing I found about it, and I don't know whether you looked at any of his work, Spencer Jones, did you see his stand-up at all, his stand-up routine?
I watched a routine from 4 years ago. Yeah, he's another who's kind of been spotted at the Fringe, I think, amongst other places, of course.
Yeah, I mean, it is almost a lift, isn't it, really, from... his stand-up, you know, a lot of the stuff he uses in his stand-up, I think, would transfer to the program, the ideas, the concepts, you know. He does that thing where he draws a nose just below his chest, and it looks like his belly button's whistling, and then he
physical comedy.
Yeah, then he kind of folds himself over so it looks like he's humming then, you know, and he's kind of doing, and then he intersperses it with, he'll say things like, I'm 38, you know, or
I've got 2 children.
They let me vote. So, you know, those kind of things, which I kind of, you know, but so I'd never seen his stand-up, and I think you're right. I think his stand-up would suffer from the same thing as well. I'm not sure how long. I don't know whether you could go and see an hour and a half of a lot of comedians like Frankie Boyle or Jimmy Carr or whoever your favourite comedian, you know, Lee Mack, whoever your favourite comedian is. I think to sustain an hour and a half of that would be quite difficult, do you think?
Yes, I've got a sneaking suspicion that he's got plenty more in reserve. But yeah, whether the audience, I don't think it could stay at that manic level. I think it would have to be. I mean, you were having a go at the Right Royal Mike Yarwood last week, saying, "And this is me," but there might have to be a moment where Spencer Jones says, "Okay, let's put that on hold for a sec. I am Spencer Jones. Thanks for coming tonight, and here's a few jokes or something." I don't know. I mean. That's his worry, or he might become a theatrical agent, or he might. My favorite. Sorry, this is a slight digression, but only slight. The biggest shift from being on the radio, for instance. Do you remember Tom Brown on the wireless?
No, I remember his school days.
Yeah, very good. Well, a different Tom Brown with an E on the end. He probably nicked the name off the book of that name. He, back in the day, and it really is far back in the day, he did the charts on Radio 1. Had the most... He was like... who's it? Eddie Izzard's always impersonating. It's James... Oh, James Mason? Is it, terribly well spoken. Yeah. People can YouTube Tom Brown. Biggest shift that I can ever think of in showbiz, or from showbiz. I thought, one day, like you do, Wikipedia... What's Tom Brown doing these days? He was big in my youth, then disappeared from the radio scene. No word of a lie. Well, certainly Wikipedia came up with, he farms rice and mushrooms in Thailand.
Oh, wow.
How manic is that?
Isn't that a euphemism for he does drugs?
I wish to distance myself from that potentially libelous remark.
Oh, no,
but
I didn't libel him. I didn't say you did. I said, isn't that... I was talking about
was
Wikipedia.
There's no suggestion, we have to say now. There's no suggestion.
Heaven forbid.
But, I don't know. Who knows? But anyway, Spencer Jones might... You can imagine him doing something totally different, like designing, I don't know, a better version of Titanic and making one that floats.
I've got to say, I think you do him an injustice, really, because... I also watched a short that he'd made called Spencer Jones Christmas. Did you see that at all?
No, I didn't. I will do, though.
Which was another short film. It was another 10 minutes or something like that. And it was a kind of watered down Herbert Clunkerdunk. So it wasn't cutaways to all the singing stuff or whatever. But it was about this bloke who is getting everything ready for Christmas, and his wife phones him and says, "Oh, you're all right, got everything for Christmas," and he's going, "Yeah," and it's like in the back of the car behind him. And then it cuts to a close-up of him on the phone. Yeah, I've got it. She's going, "Oh, look at you, being all grown up. You've got Christmas sorted and all the rest." And he goes, "Right, bye. And then you show a longer shot. And the car's been stolen and all the presents and everything. So he then goes into a pound shop kind of place and just does, buys all these wacky presents. But it was like a kind of watered-down version. But I just thought, actually, this guy, he's a great storyteller. And B, his inventiveness really enhances every project that he does. So I don't know whether he's got a lot of miles on the clock to go yet. You know what I mean? I think there might be more to see.
Oh, well, that's certainly possible. I just think, it's very difficult to say. You mentioned 38. I couldn't find anywhere on the beloved Wikipedia saying what year he was born, but clearly he's in... what you're talking about sounds like something I was watching, which said on YouTube was 4 years ago, but that could be someone putting it up 4 years ago. Could even be older. So that suggests maybe he's in his 40s. So he's not right at the start of his career. No. But yeah, I just think all I was saying was he's got the potential to go in numerous directions, which is code for very talented. I suspect, provided he can. Persuade commissioners to fund him. Yes, I imagine his mind's, he's just scraped the surface of it for now with Clunkerdunk.
Shall we have another clip then? Because one of the elements of you were saying about the Kenny Everett and his direct parallels here, I think one of the elements, and we heard a little bit of the in the jingle there, is music. He likes to put a musical number in from time to time, and. Great to see Dominic Coleman, by the way. He's an actor. I'm a comedy actor. I'm a big fan of, not least the fact because he's from my neck of the woods. I think he was from Cannock originally. Actually, I think he's Solihull, Dominic Coleman. I think he went to Tudor Grange School.
Or is it Solihull?
Solihull, yeah, Solihull. And he plays a character called Johnny Wallop, who for some reason has got these, and I love them, these strange eyes. They wear these eyes with fixed expressions. I can't really do it justice describing it, but you've got to see it to believe it. But Johnny Wallop, one of his skills is that he's able to put you on the right path when it comes to getting dog poo off the bottom of your shoe. And which I don't know if that is a skill per se, but
it's a thing. Certainly,
it certainly is. It's a thing, isn't it? Definitely, yeah. You're right. There's no question. But anyway, so the whole of Herbert's family managed to get poo on the bottom of their shoe, and Johnny has got some advice.
And what you want to do is scrape. But the first thing to do is scrape, aside, scrape.
I've got it on my toes and I drag it along. I've got it on my toes and I drag it along. I've got it on my toes and I drag it along. I've got it on my toes and I drag it along.
Oh, it's fully in the tread, man. The thing's a piece done, now it's got the whole fam. Yo, can someone tell me how this happened? They ain't that new, but now they stink of crap, man. Oh, why can't you put it in a bag, mate? These stuffy bumps really getting on my prostrate. No, what is wrong with bloody people? I'm slipping up when I'm walking down a steep hill. Twist this, you gotta twist this. You move around on your heel till you feel that you got it on the hose, man. You got a groove, man. Find a pool or a bottle, dip them in and you swish them around.
Wow. I feel I could go in loads of directions with what that makes me think of. Again, that's his mind just stimulating a million directions. Maybe it's my parallel processing. What do I want to say? Well, when you said, in fact, laying the ground last week, because for new listeners, and special welcome to new listeners and to more mature ones, what we do is set each other homework alternate weeks. And so while we were slabbing one of my choices last week, you set the homework at the end of the show.
Yeah.
And you said you weren't sure for a moment whether it was for kids. And I see, doing a bit of digging, as you've probably seen, he was in a show, Big Babies, for CBBC, which is Children's British Broadcasting Corporation, in 2010. So, in his career terms, that's a little while back. 9 years or so ago. And if it wasn't for some of the slightly fruitier language, this show could equally play to young uns.
Yeah.
I mean, it depends how liberal or otherwise you are as a parent and what you want to expose your kids to.
And added to that, though, I think, and I mean, I speak as somebody now with a little lad coming up to 2 years old. We watch a fair bit of children's TV in this house, and equally, I mean, I know most of the songs now. In fact, I'm a big fan of Justin Fletcher. I don't know if you know the guy that he does an awful lot on. He does.
Yeah. Justin Fletcher, MBE or OBE or whatever he is now.
I mean, I'm not into all those royal accolades, but if there's ever somebody deserved it, not least the fact because of his policy on inclusivity. He has children with all kinds of disabilities. Most of his shows have sign language in them as well. In fact, my little boy now knows the sign language for Friends just from watching his program, and we didn't realise. We were talking. I said to Angelina the other day, I said to my wife, I said something about Friends, and she said, "What's Frank doing?" And he was going like this, and I said, "That's the sign language for Friends."
We should explain. Is that to do with the heart? You motion towards your heart?
It's hands like that. Sorry, it's there.
Oh, right. Okay.
Two hand, one hand shaking another hand kind of thing. But
right, yeah.
But yes, and my point was that the quality, I mean, the production quality of these programs now is just there is no difference between programs made for grown-ups and programs made for children in terms of quality. I mean, they're really high quality programs, and includes scripting as well. I mean, I was watching Justin's House only this morning, and there's a guy that plays Robert the robot, who's Justin's friend and assistant and lives in the house with him. And I had to look him up, and again, a very, very accomplished actor, voiceover actor, and he's just fabulous in this because, these people are stand out. So you're right. I mean, you could see him quite easily doing kids stuff. I mean, there's no question about it because A, the quality is so high, and B, if you've got ideas and you're trying to figure them out and feel your way what works and what doesn't, no better place to do it, is there really? It's
absolutely not.
It really is. It really is good stuff. But
can I do a name drop now? And you'll be pleased. Now you've got me on the Justin Fletcher line of things and kids TV, and he's a Brummie. Although he disguises it well because he's been in the South for a long time. My mate, sorry,
a long time.
How's it said? Could you say it like
lung, as in like you've got two.
Lung, what you breathe with.
Yeah.
Anyway, his name's Richard Sutton. I have to say, he's a great fan of the comedy Slab. God bless him, and he plays Tommy Tummy in Justin Fletcher's show.
Oh, does he?
People will be able to work out I don't have children because I struggle to find the name Gigglebiz. That's what I'm looking for.
Oh, is that Gigglebiz? Is he in that? Basically, I was watching an interview of Justin Fletcher the other day, and he was saying he made Gigglebiz because he wanted to make a fast show for children.
Oh, wow.
And as soon as he said it, I thought, oh, yeah. And he said, and I went to the commissioning editor at children's TV at the BBC, and said, I want to make a fast show for children. And they said, yeah, you can do it, but you've got to play all the characters. Can you do that? And he went, yeah,
Is
okay.
That code for no money?
I think essentially, yeah. I think that's what they're saying. Yeah, I mean, he must make the BBC an absolute mint, because they sell his stuff all over the world now. I should imagine.
Well, because it's so visual, and you just have to put captions on for the occasional thing. I suppose. I don't know the show as well as I'm sure you do, but. I've seen Rich in that, and Rich is versatile as well. Anyway, that's a slight digression. What was the other thing? Do you want one or two possible gripes, or should we wait for our third and final clip?
Do it, because I really liked it, and I think because I fell in love with this so much, I'm really struggling to find things that I don't like about it, although I can understand how it would probably wear and grate quite quickly. I think he knows that, and that's why they're only 11 minutes long. I think it's quite clever. But go on, what else did you pick up that was a downside to this?
I think it's a shame. I mean, again, it's this liberal, lefty, lovey Londoner and all the L's. but we don't see much of his wife or female partner. She's very much to me. It turns the clock back. She is so peripheral, and she is playing to his, the man on the big stage. Fine, he's a big personality. Do you know what I thought of that? Do you know? And this is related, but this is me because he's stirred so many dusty parts of my brain.
Yeah.
Jerry Sadowitz, you would know, the magician and stand-up comic.
Yeah.
Glaswegian, yeah. What is it? Glaswegian Lithuanian Jew, I don't know too many of those who do magic.
Yeah.
But back in, it has to be 25 years ago, so a quarter of a century ago, he totally turned around the magician thing. Do you remember how the magician had to be male and the sidekick, she barely spoke. It had to be a she.
Yeah.
She had to be voluptuous, glittery dress. He turned that on its head, although, okay, still a magician, but he gave, forgive me, a ballsy woman a big role as his assistant, such that she, to some extent, was overshadowing him, because as a viewer then in the 1990s, wow, I've never seen anything like this. She had Doc Marten boots. She might have had fishnets. She was kind of totally subverting I have to be in the shadows. And
although it is difficult to be in the shadows in a glittery leotard, isn't it? But go on, yeah.
Well, I was going to say, Debbie McGee, bless her, who I've worked with, and her late husband. I did some of those magic shows in my sound engineering youth. There's a place for that. It wasn't saying that was terrible, but there's another way of doing it.
Although I did see Debbie doing an advert the other day for a company that refurbishes your kitchen, and I thought, that's why she didn't say anything all those years. But you got to speak as you find, haven't you?
What about the multi-million-pound kitchen company? Do you think attracted her to that advertising job?
It wasn't. No, it was one that does up your kitchen on the cheap and just puts new doors on your old cupboards, which I thought was a bit. But anyway, that aside, you see, I do think you kind of read too much into this, and with back to Herbert Clunkerdunk, I thought his wife had the stronger role. Because actually, she was the only grown-up in the house. She was the one trying to keep him on the straight and narrow, and the
stable centre.
She says to her mother on the phone, doesn't she? Yes, I'm still with him. And yes, like so she was quite. I thought she was quite a strong character. So I mean, in terms of screen time, well, yeah, I get it because it's his show. Interestingly enough, she and I forget the lady's name. Forgive me, but she hadn't done an awful lot, but she's done an awful lot with him. So they kind of worked together before, and I think they've got a new series coming up as well, and she's in that. I think that's just in production at the moment. So, they've obviously got some kind of working relationship going on there as well. But go on, what else did you find? Are there any other negatives?
Well, the kind of thing we touched on, just how long will it last? It is a bit of a sugar rush.
Yes,
but
it's good.
Again, no one sits there, or no one should sit there watching any one show, however good it is, even if it's The World at War with Gielgud voicing over, or whoever it was. You shouldn't watch TV end to end on endless repeat, however good the show is.
Although this TV is actually encouraging this now, because as we record this podcast, I'm sat here, I don't know what channel it's on, I've just got the TV on here, because I always do, I'm like, I'm terrible. On 4 Music, they're actually showing, loud and proud, because it's got it in the corner, a box set of the IT Crowd. So they're encouraging people to binge watch these kind of things. But
TV companies want you to watch themselves. But the only show I can think of that did the reverse of that was, can you think of it? The clue was in the title. You do know it, because I'm sure you've referred to it before.
No.
Maybe off air. Why don't you?
Oh, you switch off your yeah.
Yeah.
It was just called Why Don't You, wasn't it, really? But yeah.
Yes. But kids of a certain age, or grown-up kids like us, or not grown-up kids, that's the only show that ever said, this show is boring, go and have a life.
Yeah.
Obviously, it was tongue-in-cheek, But that you could afford to do that when there were 3 channels, and the chances were one of them was showing Black Beauty and another one was showing a Czech drama revoiced for Britain.
A Hungarian cartoon, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. We had all of that.
Yeah.
We was deprived.
Final clip?
I guess so, if you insist.
I think we should. Final clip is from the second episode that we watched, which the name escapes me. What was the...
it was self-tape.
Self-tape, that's it, yeah. Basically, it's essentially that he's been offered this opportunity to audition via tape for a musical, and he has been told all he's got to do is just make a tape. So he kind of does that, and he's like, he goes home, rushes home to go and do it, and the problem is there's a little bit of building work going on next door as he tries to make his tape in the kitchen.
Really excited about how it's going to look. I mean, it's not finished yet, but it's going to be quality. That little vibrations, the neighbours that have an extension done, they've got the builders in. You get used to it after a while. Quite relaxing, actually. It's sort of like, like an audio version of white noise. Although I often find myself needing a wee. I'm a bit worried about what it's doing to my brain.
They'll be done in 6 months, apparently.
I love that. It's the mastery of the throwaway. Just adding the word apparently.
Yeah.
And the way he says it. 6 months of this. Coming back to Bobby, that's his female partner. She's Bobby Kindle. I didn't realise she had a surname.
Yeah.
So that might imply they're not married. Doesn't matter either way. But anyway, they are together. Yes, I'm still with him, Mum. Lucy Pearman.
That's right, yeah.
And she's not merely an actress. She's also merely. That's tongue in cheek. Come on. She's also a writer. So does she get co-writing credits on this show? Do you know?
I don't think so.
Right.
I didn't. I think it just said written by Spencer Jones. Interesting enough, talking about the stuff that they've done. Mr. Winner is the new thing that he's got coming up that Lucy Pearman's in as well.
Okay.
I'm not sure what that's going to be like, whether it's going to be a similar kind of thing or totally different. But Spencer Jones, the star of this show, has actually been in Count Arthur Strong. He had a small part in that. Family Tree, which was... Did you ever see that one with
no,
the Irish guy from the IT crowd? I can't remember his name. And also... the puppet lady, Conti. Do you know?
Nina Conti.
Nina Conti.
So Tom Conti's daughter.
That's it, yeah. Tom Conti's daughter was in that. It was awesome. That was really funny, but just ran from one series. And Spencer Jones is also in Upstart Crow, which we've never watched.
Yeah.
Have you ever watched it or not? Have you?
I've watched it, yeah. You rubbished it previously, I think. Not too strong a term, because it involves Shakespeare, who you need to get your head around, mate, as the genius. No, you can't. That's like saying, yeah. In fact, Robert Elms, who was in a gents' toilet at the BBC that I happened to be in, there's no subtext. There's no. Well, I mean, you can start some gossip, but he just, it was the nearest toilet to BBC Radio London that he's on. He has been on record as saying, I've heard him on the air saying, I will never play the Beatles. That's like saying, as a classical conductor, I'm not going to conduct Mozart, Beethoven, Bach, Brahms. They can forget it. The biggest names of all. I think that's a very silly thing to say. I didn't say it to him in the gents' toilet at the BBC, but I thought it.
He'd have weed himself if you had.
Well, yeah.
But you wouldn't have known whether he was just in there to do that anyway, would you? That's the thing. So you don't know whether he's frightened. No, I kind of get that, and I think that's right. And I think there is far too much in this country of people trying to force other people to do what they want them to do, and it's, I don't know, I can't, like the Shakespeare thing. I think, well, there are people out there who go, I can't stand Beethoven, or I can't stand Mozart, or I can't stand, whatever it is. I can't stand opera. But I don't want to stop opera, but
or Stopra, or Stopra, the campaign, Stopra.org,
or even Stop Oprah. Although that would be a blessed relief for all of us.
That's touch and go. Yeah, that's on the edge.
You know, I don't know. I kind of get that. I think if my wife doesn't like the Beatles, she hates the Beatles.
Well, I don't like your wife now. I did like her previously.
Yeah.
It's all changed. Tell her to listen to Abbey Road on the 50th anniversary.
She can't bear them. There's something about in the same way that she can't stand the sound of madness.
And how can you marry someone who doesn't like the Beatles? That doesn't compute. I mean, I've had my own marital woes that I will take time out of any listening ear, which is almost no one.
Yeah.
It's got to be one of the first questions. It makes me think now, I've just gone on Tinder. It's got to be in my profile now. You know, no Beatles, no relationship.
I have more of a problem with the fact that when it comes to comedy, we have very little in common, and she likes Mr. Bean. Which I think...
Yeah, but now that figures, because I know you. You are Mr. Bean.
Yeah,
or Mr. Has-Been.
I mean, I have to say, I concede that Mr. Bean is very clever, but it's just not for me, and I don't like it at all, although I do like Rowan Atkinson and I do like the rest of his work. But, you know, in terms of comedy, her dad loves Porridge, and he loves, you know, Open All Hours and Only Fools and Horses
from the 70s.
Yeah, and I said, that's what I kind of said. I said, how can you end up hating comedy? You don't really like comedy or any of these comedies, and your dad, look, so he would have had them on all the while. And
well, that might be the answer to your question.
Yeah.
I mean, particularly girls differentiating themselves from their fathers. Or actually, there's probably, and I'm not a child psychologist, I shouldn't dabble. It's probably a bigger issue. Girls differentiating themselves from their mothers. But anyway, yeah, sometimes it goes the complete opposite. I did go out with someone once who loved football precisely because her dad didn't.
Right.
So there is that effect. Can I steer it back? I've got two big questions here.
Go on.
I cannot find, we talk about Kenny Everett, and I'll talk about him any day at length to anyone who'll listen. I cannot find a link between Spencer Jones and radio, but he must love it. I mean, listening to the quality of the jingles, that's the title of the first show we've slabbed, and the music and the mix and the rhythm. He's got all of that Kenny Everett had in spades, multi-tracking himself and others perhaps. Can you find any link between him and radio?
No, and I thought exactly the same as well. I mean, I have to say, that dog poo song that we played in the second clip, I did, at the end of that, I kind of thought, if I'd written and produced that, I would be so pleased with myself that I would go and have a lie down, and I wouldn't do the rest of the programmes, because it was just like with the rhythm of
the
it.
offbeat, yeah.
Yeah. And
he must be listening to rap and to soca, to Latin American rhythms.
So clever.
It doesn't go where you think it's going to go, and it's looser. It's not simply, I mean, clearly, I think, a lot of it could have been done on a laptop, but it's also got a human element that you cannot reproduce just with a bit of, guitar, whatever it's called on Apple.
I have to say
that
yeah. you're saying, like, you know, you'd have thought he would have been in radio or done something in radio, but I think radio is so rubbish now that if a Kenny Everett came along, they'd say to him, can you just read the script and play the records?
Oh, yeah. No, I thought that years ago. Yeah.
You know, or can you not do this, or can you not do that? Because the people who run radio are so crap that if they had another Kenny Everett, they wouldn't recognise it. They'd just stifle him or her until they conformed, or they'd sack him. So I fully understand why, podcasting maybe you kind of think, well, because it's much more of a free spirit. But yeah, I don't know. What was the other thing you said? Two things.
Adam and Joe. Did you ever listen to them when they were on Radio 1?
Yeah, I couldn't really. I couldn't get on with that really.
Well, I have to confess, having asked that, I've never heard them as a couple, but I've kind of caught up belatedly because I'm an old man with Adam Buxton, who's obviously big in podcasting. Have you ever heard any of his podcasts?
Yeah, again, couldn't really. People raved. I mean, people who recommended him were like, "Oh, it's amazing."
Well, I don't think he's a brilliant interviewer. Sorry, finish your point.
So I was just going to say, in the same way that people said to me, and I've forgotten his name as soon as I've said it. The guy who used to, I think we talked about him a couple of weeks ago. He used to host Buzzcocks before Mark Lamar did it. Curly haired kid.
Who went on to Friday Night Dinner, wasn't it? Simon Amstel. No, he came after Mark Lamar.
After Mark Lamar. Simon Amstel. And everybody, he's a... And they're like, I thought, I don't get it.
They were mostly female voices, weren't they? Because I believe they found him rather pretty.
Oh, okay. I never thought of that.
Don't quote me on that. Anyway, no, all the connection here, and I think people should listen to Adam Buxton particularly if they've enjoyed Spencer Jones, is the quality of his jingles, and that again, it all comes back to Kenny Everett. But my mum listened to Kenny Everett and say, "Well, we had it in my youth, Jack Jackson."
Right?
Have you ever heard him?
No.
He's worth. I mean, that's really going back to the 50s and probably further back, given my mum's, her generation. So anyway, but of course, thanks to the wonderful tube of YouTube, you can pick up on this. I was listening to a Kenny Everett show the other day, in quotes, just a throwaway show, an ordinary weekday show, because no such thing existed. It was never ordinary with Kenny, but it was from 1977 when he was on Capital Radio. All out there on YouTube land.
Wow. I used to love all the Kremen stuff as well. I thought that was
oh yeah, Captain Kremen.
Really good. Anyway, it has got to be that time, hasn't it? That's the mind of Herbert Clunkerdunk. Now it's time to go inside the mind of Adrian Lacey and figure out how many points out of 5 he wants to give it, and the same for me. Do you want to go first?
I do. I'm going to have one more digression, a theatrical equivalent of this, but it's not a comedy. Arthur Miller's After the Fall, and the stage set, you're inside someone's head. So whether Spencer Jones is at all influenced by that is a fascinating thing, and a rich seam of comedy and drama and tragedy and so on. I'm going to go for 4. I haven't had a 4 for ages. I thought it was wonderful. I tend not to give things a 5 because what's perfect? Maybe one day. And also slightly worried by the sharp fall off in the laughter quotient watching it a second time, but that's not to say it's not a brilliant show, and it spun us off in fantastic directions. The world is a far better place for Spencer Jones than without him, and people should watch him on YouTube. Backtrack.
Can't disagree with you on anything, including the 4. I'm giving it a 4 as well, because fresh, inventive, entertaining. Like I say, my wife said, "Oh, what a load of rubbish at the end," but she sat through 11 minutes, which is like, if I show her other stuff, she wouldn't sit through 11 minutes. She sat from start to finish and watched it, mesmerised.
Yeah.
But then I think something inside her tells her that, oh, that's childish, don't like it. I don't. But I thought it was inventive, clever, fresh, funny. I mean, everything that you'd want. I think, 4 out of 5, definitely. So the mind of Herbert Clunkerdunk gets an 8 out of 10 on the Comedy Slab, a very respectable score indeed. What have you got, Maestro, for us next week?
It's a cracker. We were talking about Frank Carson last week. I was listening in the week. Let me give you a clue. We haven't slabbed it, obviously. We've never gone back to the same show. We don't have to. This is a glorious golden age of comedy. And it's getting more golden each week, I find out. Yeah. I mean, obviously, there's occasional turkey, and a personal taste. If I tell you it's on to at least I think it's either Series 8 or Series 9. It is a radio show, but sadly, and this is why we must slab it now, although no doubt it will be available in some form indefinitely, but we got to slab it now. It's on its last series. We should wear black armbands next week. So radio show, Series 8 or 9. You're not there yet, are you? Another clue? I'll keep going.
Come on.
Now, this will make you think, just like your wife thinks she's not allowed to like anything childish, apart from your 2 children, who I think she's quite fond of. If I tell you it was inspired by something in The Guardian, you'll go, ooh, I mustn't like this. But you've got to override that very dark voice in your brain, because I think the potential is you'll love it. And you may, I suspect you already know it, but you don't know you know it. If I'd say it was a cartoon strip in The Guardian, and possibly still is, I think.
No.
It's been inspired by that. If I tell you the wonderful, and there will be a hashtag name drop next week, the wonderful Sally Phillips is in the lead role. You should be there.
Is it Claire in the Community?
It is very much Claire in the Community. You win the £5 and a bottle of bubbly. Unfortunately, it's just Tizer. But yes, the wonderful Sally Phillips, starring as Claire of I think we can say titular on this show. The Claire of the title.
How old are you tittering at that?
Exactly.
Which series and which episode are you going for?
The current series going out, which gives it the greatest BBC Sounds window. Wash my mouth out, I nearly said iPlayer. The episode is called I Predict a Riot. You might be able to see where she's going with that. She's in a prison. I don't need to say any more than that. I will say one more thing, though. There's a lovely subtext to it. The writer is having fun about writing. That's why I've chosen this one.
Okay.
I think it's a beaut, but hey, you may think differently. Claire in the Community, BBC Radio 4, on BBC Sounds, and hopefully will be for a long time to come, and hopefully, equally, if you're outside the UK, will be available in some form as a download or something.
All right, don't forget you can follow the Comedy Slab on Twitter and Facebook. We've got both of those pages up and running, and quite simply, they are at Comedy Slab if you want to catch us on any of those.
And we are on Spreaker, which is a misspelling of speaker, of course. I think we're teaching our kids to misspell thanks to Google. Yes, it fans out to iTunes / Apple Podcasts. We have a semi-visual, floaty version on YouTube, if that's how you like your podcast. Basically, we seem to be for the foreseeable future, we are the only Comedy Slab. So if you Google Comedy Slab or use some other proprietary search engine.
And that's it for another episode of the Comedy Slab. Thank you very much for your company. I've been a long-time fan of making up my own rhyming slang, so I'm off for a Herbert Clunkerdunk.
And I'm off to talk to my shoes and my Wellington boots, which are rather cool with Down with the Kids with the rap beat, man, whatever it's called.
It's when they talk back, that's when you know you've got a problem, isn't it?
Oh, that's got it.